Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. Read by Emilia Fox. Ours is essentially a tragic age, so we refuse to take it tragically. The cataclysm has happened. We are among the ruins. There is now no smooth road into the future, but we go round or scramble over the obstacles. This was more or less Constance Chatterley's position. The war had brought the roof down over her head, and she'd realised that one must live and learn. She married Clifford Chatterley in 1917 when he was home for a month on leave. They had a month's honeymoon. Then he went back to Flanders, to be shipped over to England again 6 months later, more or less in bits. Constance was then 23 years old, and he was 29. His hold on life was marvellous. He didn't die. After 2 years, he was returned to life, with the lower half of his body paralysed forever. In 1920, they returned, Clifford and Constance, to his home, Ragby Hall, the family seat. His father had died. Clifford was now Sir Clifford, and Constance was Lady Chatterley. Crippled forever, knowing he could never have any children, Clifford wasn't really downcast. He had a bath chair with a small motor attachment, so he could drive himself slowly round the garden and into the fine park. Having suffered so much, the capacity for suffering had to some extent left him. He remained strange and cheerful, with his ruddy, healthy-looking face. He had so very nearly lost his life that what remained was wonderfully precious to him. It was obvious, in the anxious brightness of his eyes, how proud he was of being alive. But he'd been so much hurt that something inside him had perished. Some of his feelings had gone. Constance, his wife, was a ruddy, country-looking girl with soft brown hair and sturdy body. She seemed just to have come from her native village. It wasn't so at all. Her father was a well-known artist and member of the Royal Academy, Sir Malcolm Reed. Her mother had been a Fabian. Between artists and cultured socialists, Constance and her sister Hilda had had what might be called an aesthetically unconventional upbringing. The two girls were, from an early age, not the least daunted by either art or politics. They'd been sent to Dresden at the age of 15, for music, among other things, and they'd had a good time there. They lived freely among the students and were just as good as the men themselves, only better, since they were women. Free. That was the great word. Free to do as they liked, and above all, to say what they liked. It was the talk that mattered. Love was only a minor accompaniment. Both Hilda and Constance had had their tentative love affairs by the time they were 18. The young men with whom they talked so passionately and sang so lustily and camped under the trees in such freedom wanted, of course, the love connection. So they'd given the gift of themselves, each to the youth with whom she had the most subtle and intimate arguments. The arguments, the discussions, were the great thing. The love-making and connection were a bit of an anticlimax. A woman had to yield. A man was like a child with his appetites, but a woman could yield to a man without yielding her inner free self. A woman could take a man without really giving herself away. Rather, she could use this sex thing to have power over him. For she only had to hold herself back in sexual intercourse and let him finish and expend himself without herself coming to the crisis. And then she could prolong the connection and achieve her orgasm and her crisis, while he was merely her tool.